Hey everybody, Dan with offgridcomms.com, and I'm going to do a short video today about range because I get questions about that all the time. What is the range of this radio? And really, range has far more to do about line of sight rather than the radio itself. So the radios that we sell are all 5-watt radios, and pretty much most of the handheld radios on the market today are 5-watt radios if they are not a blister pack FRS radio that you get at Home Depot. So the Bofang radios, the Quansheng radios, the Retevis radios, the Woosan radios, they're all pretty much 5-watt radios, and they all have essentially the same capability. Range is a product of line of sight. So what does that mean? So on the ground, transmitting radio to radio in an urban environment like Imlay City, you've got houses, you've got trees, you've got telephone poles and buildings and fences and all kinds of stuff between your two radios that are going to be obstructions to a line of sight. So line of sight is exactly what it means. It's a clear path from radio to radio. So the minute you start putting obstructions in between the radios, the range gets reduced. So range is a product of the obstructions between the two radios, or the lack of line of sight. That reduces your range. So conversely, you can increase your range by improving your line of sight. Well, how do you improve line of sight? Well, the number one way of improving line of sight is to get at least one of those radios to high ground. So for instance, if you went up on the water tower in Imlay City, you go from 1 to 3 mile range that you had on the ground to 20 to 25 mile range from up on the water tower. Why? Because you've reduced the amount of obstructions between you and the radios on the ground because you're high up and the line of sight becomes much better. So you can do this in a lot of different ways. You can go up on top of a highway overpass. You can do it from a tall building. You can climb up a silo out in farm country and transmit from the top of the silo. You can just transmit from a high hill. Like here in Mayville, where I live, there's a hill up on Brown Road that if I get up on that hill, I've essentially got a clear line of sight for about 25 miles. My handheld walkie-talkie will talk a long ways from up on that hill. So range is a product of line of sight. Sometimes you've got insurmountable obstructions. So this next slide shows an insurmountable obstruction. So we've got a big hill in between two stations trying to talk to each other. And the hill's going to just block them. There's nothing you can do about that. If you climb to the top of the hill, yeah, you can talk to both stations. But in a normal scenario, you're not going to be able to communicate between those two houses. But if you put a repeater up on top of the hill, and a repeater does exactly what it says it does, it repeats. It repeats everything it hears. So now you've mitigated that line of sight issue by putting a repeater up on top of the hill and created a man-made line of sight. So the house on the right transmits to the repeater repeats it down to the house on the left. The house on the left transmits to the repeater, and the repeater repeats it down to the house on the right. And now you've mitigated that hill in the middle that's blocking your signal by using a repeater. Conversely, you could get on top of the hill with a handheld and transmit to either home and mitigate it by just getting to higher ground. So in short, range is a product of line of sight. Repeaters are a man-made way around that, but another way around it is to simply get to high ground, like a parking structure, a tall building, a hill, a silo. Whatever it takes to get at least one of the radios to high ground will improve your range dramatically. You can easily go from a mile or two to 20, 25 miles with a handheld radio. It's amazing. So with that, happy communicating. This is Dan with offgridcomms.com. Visit the website. There's plenty of articles there that'll help you understand some of these concepts.